This is Lorenzo, and this is the training routines taxonomy video series, lesson number 15. It's on the 11th routine, the row complex, which is a metabolic conditioning routine focused on helping you develop horizontal pulling speed and endurance. In fact, it's going to help you master 2 of the 30 fitness benchmarks that we previously discussed. And we're going to do that using the MSP exercise protocol framework. It's only 5 exercises. Let's take a look. The row complex is one of 7 upper body routines and one of 3 pulling vector routines. Now, while I've classified the row complex as a horizontal pulling exercise, technically it is a sagittal hip dominant global body horizontal pulling exercise. It has 50% hip drive character, 20% core stabilization character, and finally 30% horizontal pulling character. Together with the row track that we saw in the previous video, the row complex will help us master one of the body's 9-dimensional skills, namely horizontal pulling or rowing endurance. Now, before we look at the 5 exercises that make up the row complex, we need to first understand the objectives and strategies and tactics that will drive its success by exploring its training plan. Let's take a look. As previously mentioned, the row complex has been designed to help you achieve 2 of the 30 fitness benchmarks and 2 out of the 6 metabolic conditioning benchmarks. The first is the 2-kilometer row, a benchmark focused on glycolytic endurance. As a recreational male athlete, your goal is to row 2,000 meters within 7 minutes and 15 seconds. As for the female recreational athletes, it is to do the same, 2,000 meters under 8 minutes and 30 seconds. As for our second objective, we have the 500-meter row. It is a benchmark of anaerobic speed. Your goal as a recreational athlete is to row 500 meters within 1 minute and 32 seconds. And for the recreational female athletes, to row 500 meters within 1 minute and 45 seconds. Good luck. As for a strategy or the minimum mobility, stability, and strength requirements for safer, more efficient, and effective rowing, both the 2-kilometer and 500-meter rowing events require basic hip and shoulder mobility, core anti-flexion stability, and finally, hip and shoulder extension strength. In other words, if you want to get good at rowing, well, you need to row. As for our tactics or the ideal environment that we need to implement our strategy, we're going to need an open training zone for our mobility and stability preparatory work. We're going to need a cardio zone, especially if you're at a gym. You're going to look for a mat as well as a rower, and hopefully a Concept 2 rower will be available. Okay, so with our objective and our strategy in mind, and we have our tactics in place, we're now finally ready to see what the MSP exercise protocol framework looks like as it applies to the row complex. So for our first 2 exercises in the mobility category, serving as our warm-up, but also an opportunity for us to address certain chronic mobility deficits. We have our first exercise, the straight leg extension hang. It's one of my favorite exercises. Followed by the second exercise, the straight arm Capsule-T, which we saw in the previous video. In our stability category, not following the 60-second rule, but the 3-minute rule. Technically, these aren't stability exercises, but they serve the same purpose. For our third exercise, we have the dynamic body. For the fourth exercise, we have the jump rope. And for the 5th and final exercise in our routine, you will choose between either the 2-kilometer row event or the 500-meter row event. So for our first exercise, we have the extension hang, and as the name suggests, you're going to hang in a shoulder extended position, as we see over here. The extension hang is a knee extension, hip flexion, hamstring stretch, and a shoulder extension, anterior deltoid stretch, whereby you will start with your feet together, keeping your legs straight, bent over with a relatively light dowel, and you will hold this position for 3 minutes. It is very common for people to have a pelvis that is tilted posteriorly as a result of short hamstrings causing a rounded back while rowing, which the extension hang will help prevent. Moving on to the second exercise, we have the Capsule-T, which we saw in the previous video. It is a shoulder capsule stretch. We will target both the anterior and posterior aspects of the shoulder as we see it in this image. We will start by getting into a prone capsule position, targeting the posterior deltoid for 30 seconds. We will then do the same on the other side for 30 seconds, stretching the posterior delts. We will then get into a letter T position, as you can see here. And that would be an anterior delt stretch, holding also for 30 seconds on each side. Together, the extension hang and Capsule-T, which shouldn't take us longer than 5 minutes, helps us to fulfill the minimum hip and shoulder mobility requirements that we need for more efficient rowing. Moving on to the third exercise, we have the dynamic body as we saw it in the run and cycle complex, because we will always do the dynamic body and the jump rope right before cycling, running, and also now rowing. It is a total body joint mobilization protocol. Your goal is to mobilize and articulate every major joint in the body, working your way down from the cervical spine. So you start with the neck, move down to the scapula, your shoulders, torso, and then finally your hips. Moving on to the fourth exercise, we have the jump rope. Now, if you don't have a jump rope, you can simply jump up and down, forward, back. The whole point is just to elevate the heart rate as well as to warm up the elastic tissues and to prepare you for your more dynamic and explosive events such as the row. Okay, so once we're done with the mobility and stability preparatory work, we're finally ready for the main event, which is either going to be a 2 kilometer or 2,000 meter row focused on endurance, or you're going to do a 500 meter row protocol focused on speed. Now, for those of you who are new to rowing, it's important to make sure that you first spend your first or second session just learning the mechanics. I provided for you guys 3 videos in the Training Routines Taxonomy PDF of experts teaching you how to row efficiently and safely. So it's important that you first consume those. And maybe for your first and second session, you just learn how to get comfortable with the row before you attempt any records. Once you feel comfortable with your rowing technique, we recommend that you start with the 2 kilometer row. First, download the ERG Data C2 app, because every rowing event you complete will be registered and logged there for future reference. You then want to set a baseline score for the 2 kilometer or 2,000 meter row event. So let's say, for example, that you set a baseline score of 8 minutes and 30 seconds. It's very simple. Every time you do this event, you try to beat your previous best score. Once you've completed 3 or more 2 kilometer row events, we recommend that you start playing with the 500 meter protocol focused more on speed. The 500 meter protocol is a 3 sets of a 1-to-2 rest work ratio protocol, which means you're going to row 500 meters 3 times, but your rest period will be twice that of your row or work period. So let's say, for example, your first set takes 2 minutes. You will then rest twice that, which is 4 minutes. Your goal is to row 500 meters 3 times and faster each time for every workout. Finally, a quick word on frequency. If you plan on rowing only once per week, we recommend that your 2 kilometer event serve as your foundation. And then you could alternate from one week to the next. So let's say the following week, you could focus on your 500 meter row. If you're doing 2 times per week, we recommend your 2 kilometer is still the foundation for day 1. But then day 2, of course, you can alternate and then focus on speed with the 500 meter event. So in summary, the row complex is the extension hang, followed by the Capsule-T, the dynamic body, 3 minutes of jump rope, and finally, the 2,000 meter row event focused on endurance, or the 500 meter row event focused on speed.